Stop anthropomorphizing intermediate tokens as reasoning thinking traces. That's literally the title of this scientific article. Intermediate token generation, where a model produces output before the solution. This could be considered chain of thought. So when you see like the AI outputting like the steps that it's taking to come to a conclusion, it's that. It has been proposed as a method to improve the performance of language models on reasoning tasks. These intermediate tokens have been called reasoning traces or even thoughts, implicitly anthropomorphizing the model, implying these tokens resemble steps a human might take when solving a challenging problem. In this paper, we present evidence that this anthropomorphization isn't a harmless metaphor and instead is quite dangerous. It confuses the nature of these models and how to use them effectively and leads to questionable research. All right. Now, why do they say this? So let me go down here, right here. In this paper, we take the position that anthropomorphizing intermediate tokens as reasoning thinking traces is 1. Wishful, 2. Has little concrete supporting evidence, 3. Engenders false confidence, and 4. May be pushing the community into fruitless research directions. This position is supported by work questioning the interpretation of intermediate tokens as reasoning thinking traces and by stronger alternate explanations for their effectiveness. Now, it's a contentious issue, they say. LLMs have certainly increased our anthropomorphization tendencies. While some forms of anthropomorphization can be treated rather indulgently as harmless and metaphorical, our view is that this kind of reasoning thinking is more serious and may give a false sense of model capacity, or capability rather, and correctness. So they get into it. What kinds of issues can treating these things as if they are human or of human likeness lead to? Not only does it bias humans when they see the output of these things into having more trust in what they're actually doing, which is another reason why I do these streams and cover these articles, because I'm trying to get people to be aware of the limitations, how they work, and how surgical you have to be when you're using them. But on top of that, even in the research field, you have scientific papers that think of these things as human-like. And I actually have another scientific article next to this one, which we're going to read, that actually has this bias a little bit baked into the scientific research. This is what this paper is bringing out, is that it biases, it creates a bias rather in the humans who use them and in the researchers who do research around LLMs. And so you get bad output from both ends of the spectrum. Now, there was a particular, there was another one that I wanted to go over here. Let me just skip down. Okay, here we go. This one. The various unhealthy ramifications of this anthropomorphization. I'm sorry, I can't zoom in anymore. I'm going to highlight the words. You can look it up yourself, all right? Viewing intermediate tokens as reasoning thinking traces has led to a drive to make them interpretable to humans in the loop. Never mind that interpretability mostly meant that the traces were in pseudo-English. Now, this was interesting. What do they mean by this? For example, DeepSeek dabbled in training an RL-only model, R10, but released a final version, R1, that was trained with additional data and filtering steps specifically to reduce the model's default tendencies to produce intermediate token sequences that mix English and Chinese. Has anybody made sense of this yet? Does anybody understand what this is yet? This is so stupid. I'm just going to trust that my audience has the brain power to understand what I just read here. Another unhealthy impact. It has led to an implicit assumption that correctness interpretability of the intermediate tokens has a strong correlation or even causal connection with the solution produced. This tendency is so pronounced that a major vendor study showing that LRM's answers are not always faithful to their intermediate tokens was greeted with surprise. So just because you see that chain of thought does not mean that the chain of thought actually had any impact at all on the conclusion. Viewing intermediate tokens as traces of thinking or reasoning has naturally led to interpreting the length of the intermediate tokens as some sort of meaningful measure of problem, difficulty, effort, and techniques that increase the length of intermediate tokens were celebrated as learning to reason. Simultaneously, there were efforts to shorten intermediate traces produced and celebrate that as learning to reason efficiently. It's hard being me. It's hard being so right all the time. It's difficult being right so much. All the time, so much. There have been attempts to cast intermediate tokens as learning some algorithm that generated the training data. For example, the authors of Searchformer claim that their transformer learns to become more optimal than A star because it produces shorter intermediate token traces than A star's derivational trace on the same problem. Whoever just followed, thank you. I just saw it pop up. Thank you for the follow, probably on one of the other platforms. I do appreciate it. I'm sorry I couldn't pay attention to it popping up, but I do appreciate that. This is ripe for all kinds of bad outcomes. When you're looking at a chain of thought and you are basing scientific progress of LLMs based on the chain of thought, or you are treating it as a human being, you're looking at that and going like, holy crap, look how many steps it took to come to like, what is 1 + 1, or to generate a map of the universe. Look at all the steps it did to generate a map of our galaxy even. And you go, it must be right. It's reasoning, right? Artificial general intelligence is coming our way. When you use that as a premise for scientific papers, when you use that as a premise for studies, this is bad. This is very, very bad. And I just want to go back, since no one can answer it because no one clearly pays enough attention to actually understand. You just listen to me talk and you don't actually turn on your brain, which is the entire purpose of this stream. You lazy, lazy bums. I will answer this for you. This first paragraph. The AI thinks that in order for you to understand better how it got to the conclusion that it did, not only will it show you a chain of thought or steps that it took to get to its conclusion that is catered to making you feel like you got a good conclusion because it's reward based. So it will literally hide its own chain of thought. It will just make up chain of thought steps to make you feel happy. But it also thinks that you need to have a mix of English and Chinese in that chain of thought so that you properly understand how it got to that conclusion. That's how stupid it is.